It was 2 a.m. when I woke up to the sound of breathing. At first, I thought it was my roommate, Sarah. She had a habit of tossing and turning at night, and I figured she was having another restless sleep. But when I rolled over to check her bed, it was empty. Sheets perfectly made. No sign she had even been there. I lay still, trying to make sense of it. The breathing was soft, shallow, and coming from the other side of the room. But then, I realized, it wasn't just from the other side. It was coming from under my bed. My heart raced. I held my breath, frozen, trying to convince myself that it was just my imagination. I hadn't been sleeping well lately. Maybe I was just overtired. But then, I heard it again. Faint, but unmistakable. Slow breaths in and out, almost in rhythm with my own heartbeat. I couldn't stay still any longer. My hand shook as I reached for my phone, trying not to make a sound. I used the flashlight to illuminate the dark room, but didn't dare point it under the bed just yet. Maybe if I waited long enough it would stop. It didn't. Instead, I heard a subtle rustling, like someone shifting in a tight space. That was when I knew. I wasn't alone. Summoning every ounce of courage, I swung my phone's light toward the floor, slowly tilting it until the edge of the beam touched the underside of the bed. And there, staring back at me, was a pair of wide, glassy eyes, a face half hidden in the shadows. I gasped, jumping out of bed, rushing to the door. My hands fumbled for the lock. My mind was screaming to run. But when I finally yanked the door open, there was no sound of pursuit. I called the police, terrified, unsure what I'd seen. When they arrived, they searched the room, but found nothing. No one under the bed. No signs of forced entry. I felt like I was losing my mind until one of the officers noticed something. The window, barely cracked open, had a smudge on the outside ledge, like someone had crawled in from the fire escape. They found a knife tucked into the space between the mattress and the wall. The officer turned to me, eyes dark with concern. "You're lucky," he said quietly. "Looks like he was waiting for you to fall asleep again." Late-night showers in the dorms were usually my favourite time of day. The bathroom was always empty around midnight, and it gave me a quiet break from the chaos of college life. That night was no different. I grabbed my towel, toiletries, and headed down the hall to the showers. The bathroom was empty, just as I expected. I picked a stool, turned on the water, and let the hot steam fill the room. For the first few minutes, everything was normal. The familiar hum of the water against the tile was soothing, and I began to relax. But then something changed. Through the sound of the water, I thought I heard something else. A soft, creaking noise, like the bathroom door opening. I stopped, listening. There was no one else in the dorm section that late, so I figured it was just the building settling or maybe a draft. I went back to rinsing off, letting the water drown out my unease. But the noise came again, closer this time. I froze, heart beginning to race. Slowly, I wiped the water from my face and peeked through the small gap between the shower curtain and the stall wall. The lights were dim, and the mirrors were fogged, but I swore I saw something move. Just a shadow, quick and fleeting. I quickly finished up, shutting off the water, trying to convince myself that I was just being paranoid. But as I wrapped my towel around me and stepped out of the stall, I noticed something that made my skin crawl. On the fogged-up mirror, there was a handprint, fresh, wet, and too large to be mine. I grabbed my things and left the bathroom as fast as I could. When I got back to my room, I locked the door, heart still racing. I told myself it was just someone messing around. The next morning, I told my roommate what happened, expecting her to laugh it off. But instead, she looked at me, eyes wide. "You didn't hear? Last year, a guy was caught sneaking into the dorm or watching girls in the shower. They never found out how many rooms he got into before they caught him." I laughed it off, but deep down, my mind was racing. I went back to the bathroom later that day, hoping to prove myself wrong. But when I checked the mirror, the handprint was still there, and it was larger than I remembered. I was always the last one in the library. My dorm was only a 5-minute walk from the campus library, so I didn't mind staying late to study. One night, after an especially long session, I finally packed up around 2 a.m. The campus was eerily quiet as I made my way back to the dorms. When I reached my building, I noticed something odd. The light in the common area just outside my room was flickering. I didn't think much of it. Old building, probably just a short circuit. But when I approached my door, my stomach sank. The door was wide open. I knew I had locked it before I left. I stepped inside cautiously, whispering my roommate's name, but there was no answer. I flipped on the lights. The room was just as I'd left it, except for one thing. My closet door was open. Not just open, wide open, the way I never leave it. I felt a sudden chill. Something was wrong. I quickly checked my things. Nothing was missing. Nothing was out of place. I wanted to believe it was just my imagination, that maybe my roommate had come back and left in a hurry. But as I closed the closet door, I noticed something strange. A single wet footprint on the carpet, leading from the closet to the door. Panic set in. I grabbed my phone and dialed campus security, explaining what I found. They told me to wait outside my room until they arrived. 10 minutes later, the officer arrived, checked my room and reassured me it was probably just my roommate playing a prank. But my roommate wasn't back yet. The next morning, I confronted my roommate when she returned. She swore she hadn't been in the room that night. We both laughed it off, but the uneasy feeling never left me. 2 days later, I got a call from campus security. They had reviewed the surveillance footage from the hallway. They saw me leave the library and enter the building. But they also saw something else. 20 minutes before I arrived, a man had been seen entering my room. He never left.